Hello everyone, welcome to the Lang Focus channel and my name is Paul. Today I'm going to talk about the Maltese language. Maltese is a unique and interesting language because it is a Semitic language with a twist. It is the only Semitic language that is an official language of the European Union. It is spoken by around 520,000 people, mostly on the island nation of Malta, which is an island in the Mediterranean Sea, not far from Sicily and not far from Tunisia and Libya in North Africa. Some people claim that Maltese is a descendant of the ancient Phoenician language, but actually there's no linguistic evidence for this. Maltese is a descendant of a dialect of Arabic called Siculo-Arabic, or Sicilian Arabic. But it has diverged quite a lot from Arabic over the last 1,000 years or so and has now become its own language. The syntax and grammar of Maltese remains Arabic, and about a third of the vocabulary is still Arabic, and that includes most of the grammatical function words as well as a lot of the most basic vocabulary. About half of the vocabulary is from Italian or Sicilian, and the remaining vocabulary is mostly from English and French. It's still considered a Semitic language because of its Arabic origin and because of its structure, but if you take into account all of the foreign loanwords, especially the Romance loanwords, then it's essentially a hybrid language, kind of like a Semitic Romance hybrid. So how did this interesting mix of influences come together to create Maltese? Well, it's because of its history, of course. The Fatimid Caliphate, which covered much of North Africa, conquered Sicily at the end of the 9th century and brought their Maghrebi, or North African, dialect of Arabic with them. Then in 1049 CE, Arabic-speaking Muslim settlers from Sicily arrived in Malta, which is only about 200 kilometers away, and began to establish communities there. In the year 1091 CE, the Normans, who were Christians from Normandy in present-day France, had defeated the Arabs and taken hold of Sicily, and then began taking hold of Malta too. Under Norman rule, more settlers from Sicily began arriving in Malta and bringing their language with them. Even though the Normans were Christian, the population of Sicily was still a mixture of Christians and Muslims who spoke Arabic alongside the Sicilian language. After the decline of Norman rule, the new regime in Sicily expelled all of the Muslims from Sicily and from Malta as well. This was a very significant event because it essentially cut off the Siculo-Arabic dialect from the Muslim Arabic-speaking world, and it also cut it off from the classical Arabic language. In other Arabic-speaking lands, the Quran remained a conservative force that prevented the dialects from changing too much over time. But in Malta, that conservative force was no longer connected to the dialect, so the dialect was free to drift off in its own direction and become a new language. Siculo-Arabic died out in Sicily, but it continued to be used and evolve in Malta. Malta remained part of the Kingdom of Sicily for several hundred years, which brought lots of Sicilian vocabulary into the language. The island was then controlled by a string of rulers who influenced the developing Maltese language. One of the most significant regimes to rule Malta was the Knights Hospitaller of St. John, a powerful order of knights that assisted and protected Christian pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. They were given the island of Malta in 1530 as an outpost to help prevent an Ottoman invasion of Rome from the south. They made Italian the official language of the island, and it remained the official language until 1934. This resulted in a large amount of Italian vocabulary entering the language. There was also a period of 2 years when Malta was under French rule, and just from those 2 years, quite a bit of French vocabulary entered the language too. And the island was a British protectorate from 1800 to 1956, and of course that led to the adoption of lots of English words into Maltese. So Maltese is essentially an Arabic dialect that has become Latinized and to some extent Anglicized. So how similar is it to Arabic today? Well, if you know Arabic and you try to read some Maltese, you will quickly realize that it's basically Arabic in structure, but you will also see a lot of foreign vocabulary, mostly Romance vocabulary. It is most similar to the Maghreb dialects of Arabic, meaning the dialects of Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, especially the Tunisian dialect. A lot of Tunisians claim that they can quite easily understand Maltese. That could be because Tunisian Arabic itself has quite a few Italian loanwords, and I also understand that a lot of Tunisians can understand Standard Italian, so if they speak Tunisian Arabic and Italian, then they can quite easily understand Maltese. Lots of people say that if you know an Arabic dialect quite well and if you also know Italian, then reading Maltese won't be much of a problem, and with some adjustment you can also learn to understand it fairly easily. That doesn't mean you could speak proper Maltese, but maybe you could use your Arabic and your Italian and sort of hack a conversation in a new pidgin language. So let's look at a couple example sentences of Maltese. So this sentence here is an example of one that's mostly Arabic. By the way, I've never learned to speak Maltese, so forgive my pronunciation. Il-Giappun għandu l-10 l-akbar popolazzjoni tad-dinja b'aktar minn 126 miljun persuna. Now, I understood this sentence almost perfectly, and it's basically all Arabic. The first word, il-Japun, that's Japan. Andu, that's has. Il Ashar, that's the 10th. Il Akbar, that's the biggest. Popolazioni, that's not Arabic, but that looks like an Italian loanword to me. Taddinya, so that's in the world. Ba'aktar min, that means with more than. And then there's the Arabic number, Mia Sittu wa Ashrin. And then there's milyun, which is million in Arabic too. And then persona, which is not Arabic, but I guess that's from Italian or Sicilian. But sometimes you see sentences with a lot more loanwords, particularly Italian. For me personally, I know that with my past study of Arabic and with my fluency in English and my recent basic knowledge of Italian, I can take a stab at reading Maltese and I can understand a fair bit of it, but not all of it. When I hear spoken Maltese, I don't really understand it, but I can pick out some individual Arabic and Italian and English words. But I imagine that as my Italian improves, I'll be able to understand a bit more of it, and if I decided to review my Arabic in depth and start to learn a Maghrebi dialect, then I think I would be able to understand a lot more Maltese as well. Maltese is not a very widely spoken language, so not that many people learn it, and there aren't that many materials out there for learners, but for someone who's learning Arabic or learning Italian, then it might be fun to dabble in some Maltese and see what you can make of it.
Es el Evangelio según San Juan en maltés. Entonces, si lo leo en maltés, a mí me pasó en La Valeta que parecía un chiste del chiquito de la calzada, porque es que cojo un taxi y le digo en árabe, me lleva al hotel Osborne, que era donde yo me quedaba, y me dice, anda, ¿hablas maltés? Y digo, no, hablo árabe. ¿Cómo va a ser eso si te estoy entendiendo si yo no hablo árabe? Y digo, ¿cómo va a ser eso si yo no te entiendo si no hablo maltés? ¿Cuál es el intríngulis de todo? Que el maltés es árabe, pero está escrito en caracteres latinos. Y no quiere el maltés decir que habla árabe. De hecho, cuando tú dices origen del idioma maltés, el origen del idioma maltés se remonta a los orígenes semíticos de los. ¿Por qué? Porque no quieren decir, por supuesto, esto es árabe. Filbidu kienet il kelma o el kelma kienet ma Allah o el kelma kienet Allah es el principio del Evangelio tal como lo leería hoy día un maltés. Pero si lo lee un árabe, dice Filbadi y kanet el kelima o el kelima kanet ma Allah o el kelima kanet Allah. Y es exactamente lo mismo. Malta es un país hipercatólico y a Dios se le dice Allah. Yo estuve en un entierro en Malta y el obispo decía Marra andallah, lo decía en maltés y era una celebración católica. Marra andallah literalmente se ha ido con Dios. Eso es la forma de decir se nos ha muerto y es Allah. Por lo tanto, Allah es Dios en árabe, no es el Dios de los musulmanes.